on YouTube and starting the webinar. Oh, and I'm still got to change my name. Hello, everybody. Tara Bachland here with the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. Just talking to myself as we're entering and starting the webinar. Hope you don't mind. Internal notes. So we have a very special class today because, well, it'll end up being a class. Matt always is so prolific and shares so much in his teaching that even what's supposed to be a fun event will end up being a class, no doubt. So get ready. And here we go. So maybe you're here. I'm sure everybody knows what we're here for. It's Herb Magic Day because it's Leap Year Day, which only happens once every 4 years, is it?
Yep.
And so we're kind of in this magical space anyways. Is it a real day? Is it not? Who knows? But let's talk about herbs and their magical potential, which anyone who's worked with them has probably had a magical moment at some point. But there are, maybe to your surprise, there are herbs that have special, let's say maybe magical powers. And Matt's going to share some of those special ones with us. Alberto is here. I'm here to give Matt some company, and we might chime in here and there. If you have some fascinating stories, please share them in the chat as well. And we'll share some of those that come up. And just overall, welcome. It's good to see you, everybody. And do say hello and where you're from in the chat. When you click on that chat icon, it'll open up a side panel. And at the very bottom, it'll say type a message here. So of course, that's where you type your message. And right above that, it'll say host and panelist. I encourage you to switch that over to everyone, and then you'll be able to chat with everyone, which is so much fun and we really enjoy. So welcome you to do that. We have people joining us from all over. Well, first of all, I'm in Minnesota, Alberto's in Ottawa, Canada, and Matt is all the way in California. So we're spanning the North Americas here. And we have Francine from, oh, it just went by, Wisconsin, Leanne from Edward Point, Canada. Wow, they're just going by so quickly. Oh, we have Karen from Australia.
Oh,
Speaking of spanning the lengths there, Francesca from Massachusetts. We have someone from Texas, Pennsylvania, literally from all over the place. Wonderful. So good to see all of you. Another from Australia, just picking some of the long distance ones. Los Angeles, New York. Great to see you, everybody. And we look forward to hearing your stories as well. Hopefully we can get to a few of those. And so without further ado, however, I'm going to hand it off to Matt to get us started with these magical stories.
thank you. Yes, it was earlier this week on Tuesday, was it? Or Monday or no, it was last week when I told the Susan stories last Wednesday. And we played the tape that Susan and I made about 10 months ago or so, and she's passed on. So I was really happy to record those because every moment with Susan was magical. I mean, it just was like she was like, some people are a laugh a minute, but she was like a dimension shift a second, kind of. So like so I left several stories out. One of them I left out was, so we were going to a pipestone quarry in Wisconsin, which the US government says there's only one pipestone quarry in North America, but it's not quite true. And we were going to this one. I won't tell where it is because I don't know, it's probably on private land. And um, so we were going over there, and Susan and we stopped at a bison farm on our way to Taylor's Falls. Those Minnesotans that know that area, Laketon, Buffalo Farm, and we got a bunch of patties, and we started driving along, and the clouds were all moving kind of towards the southeast, the normal direction out of Alberta down to, Tennessee through Minnesota. But there's this one little cloud going the other way, just this one little cloud going that way. And Susan called it a Heyoka cloud. And we were watching it a little bit. And then all of a sudden, and so it was a pickup truck, and the window was closed on her side. I did have mine open, but all of a sudden she said, "Ouch, that cloud bit me." It's like, okay, somebody might say that was an insect. And it like swelled up, got red and hot, and somebody might say, "Oh, it must have been an insect," but uh, actually, I mean, who else? Nobody but Susan would immediately say it was the cloud bitter. And she said, "Oh, I was saying something bad about the peace pipe." I didn't hear that, but she evidently interpreted it that way. So there we are driving, and I could have stopped. And what could I have given it class? It would have been plantain, would have been a good thing by the side of the road. But um, we had buffalo patties, and like life provides, the good Lord provides. So we just peeled off one buffalo patty and stuck it on wherever she got bit, and she held it there, and that pulled out that's, of course, you maybe have heard of that. That's an old folk remedy that pulled out the venom, or whatever the cloud medicine we could have to call it. It pulled the cloud out, and we felt you got to throw something like that away. So that was a day with Susan, and actually it just happens, just to segue into another story I've told many times, but I told it on last Wednesday. When a week ago, when that was actually the trip where I picked some puffballs, and we fried them up, cut them up, cooked them, because puffballs are pretty hard not to know. And I know, 5 or 10 mushrooms, and I know the poisonous toadstools. Well, she didn't, and she picked some poisonous toadstools and got her poisoning with um that I talked about last week. Yes. Oh, yes, yes. Quite good. Yeah. So she got poisoned by eating the Amanita muscaria, no, the Amanita vernax or phalloides, the deadly avenging angel, that was out that time in August that year. And yeah, that's actually the Amanita muscaria, which is hallucinogenic but not toxic. And in our area of Minnesota, the orange ones are more typical. They're very beautiful. You just see it once in a while. And then the deadly ones, yeah, or the yellow also, those are still safe. But by that point, you should really know your mushrooms. The avenging angel is pale and um brownish white. It doesn't have the little bits there. Yeah, yeah. So I would say you've got to know that mushroom if you're gonna go out. You see how similar it is to the muscaria, and how you could actually possibly confuse them. Well, she ate oh, that one in that inky cap was not, is a different species. Okay, so well, she ate one. We ended up at Abbott Northwestern Hospital in South Minneapolis, and that story is on the tape I told last time. So, and she does say that she's the only person I've ever met who has eaten Amanita um, phalloides or vernex and survived, and she said it does taste good. So. Okay, but that's a magic mushroom you do not even want to touch. So 'cause she said she ate her fingers are pretty small. She ate two pieces about the size of her small fingernail. So that was enough to kill a person. But milk thistle is a well-known antidote, and that's what we used in that story. So in that true life experience. So that too, that what can you say? Life was uh um just really fun spending time with her. So, so another experience, and this leads into a truly magical herb that may be surprising, and I don't know all the different ways that one could use it, but that's mullein. And it used to be when I was young, all that we knew about mullein was that it was good for cough. And like you see the furriness on it, the hairiness, and you come to the conclusion that it's good for maybe when the hairs, the villa, or the cilia, the villa of the lungs are worn down. The hairs on the lungs are worn down, and from coughing, or they're infected. So you get a basso profundo cough, or you get a because they've not only got infected, but they got worn down. And oh, I could do cough. We'll have to do a class on cough imitations.
I'll find it on, it's on YouTube somewhere. I'll see if one of us, maybe Alberto, can you find it? I'm pulling up something else. We'll get that
Yeah,
link to you all. It's a great
yeah,
one.
I know. I think I actually had one out years and years ago before there ever was an institute. Yeah, it might be floating around. Yeah. But so Mullen, and then I began to learn more about it. Oh, that was after. So Susan, let's see. So Susan was a union carpenter for 20, 25 years. She was in her 40s. She was semi-retired from carpentry. I mean, your body wears out after a while. Well, no, she just was she she had a regular job for a company and she did odd jobs that still came to her. And she fell forward onto a 2x4 that was sticking out and it broke a rib and oh, this is a great magical story. And the rib like separated a little bit, like that. And so that set up a cough, like a harsh, racking cough. And I had already learned that mullein is a really good remedy for a harsh, racking cough that shakes all the way down to the bottom of your lungs. And yeah, I had learned that a couple years before this story. I remember it was a nun that actually I helped way back when I worked at Present Moment Herbs. So many great people that we passed through our doors in those days, 1980s and 90s. Um, so uh, so harsh racking cough from that can break a rib. And it just dawned on me, and it kind of came psychically to her at the same moment. If mullein can be a remedy for a harsh racking cough that after a couple months breaks a rib, maybe it's a remedy for broken rib that causes a cough. And it certainly kind of looks like a 2x4 sticking out, hitting you, maybe. And so she had some that she smoked in her peace pipe. They're used by the Indian people to clean the pipe out, which I'll talk about in a little bit. But she had some set aside and she just put one, just a dry leaf on her rib and she taped it there. She must be a good sound sleeper that doesn't roll around a lot because it stayed on. And then in the morning, the rib was back in place. And about 5 days later, it went out a little bit and she put the leaf on again, or a new leaf probably, and it stayed. And that was it. And we cured that because that's a very hard break to cure because, oh, no, oh, well, we can't say to put into remission. Oh, it's a very bad kind of break to repair. And because uh you you can't put a cast on it. They might immobilize your arm. And if you're an older person, even slower regrowth, but she was only in her 40s then, so still a tough carpenter. So we learned that. We learned that, and from that, we learned that mullein was good for setting bones and later for helping bones grow. And I do have to say that was the moment at which that particular piece of information was uncovered because that was not in herbal literature. I never heard about it anywhere else. After I taught about it, many, many people experienced that. And it's a really good thing to know because we really have three good herbal remedies for setting bones. Comfrey, bone set, or you could substitute gravel root if you didn't have bone set. And mullein and comfrey will set a bone even if it's set wrong. And um, Phyllis is a little suspicious of bone set. I've never seen that set it wrong. But mullein seems to help it get in the right place, has the intelligence to set bones, which I originally thought, oh, this is a magical property. No, there's many magical things about this plant. But actually, it generates a lot of fluids around the break. Like, so there's the bone osteum or whatever it's called, osteo. There's the bone, and then there's the covering, the periosteum, which is darkish colored because it's full of blood that's going to the bone. Darn it, I gotta turn my thing off here. It's yeah, there's bone set. It's the the bone is covered with this periosteum, which is dark red brown, or at least when I've ever seen it. I'm not a surgeon opening up a body, but so it may be drying out by the time I've seen it. And that brings all the blood into the bone because those are living cells and very highly calcified. And also because the surface is very alive, and there's osteoblasts generating new osteocytes, new bone tissue, and there's osteoclasts eating up the old ones and getting rid of that. And so yeah, um, so it definitely lubricates. It's a lubricating plant. Remember, it's kind of dry and hairy looking, so it's a signature. It's good for dried out tissue. So it generates fluids. It's really good for like wrists, and ankles and spines, or complex places where there's complex bones where the break can be a little more complex than normal. Um, I've gotten to the point where I consider it definitely helps the bone get in the right place, which is kind of magical, but I think it also helps regrowth of bone. It must, if it's generating water out of the capillary bed of the periosteum, it must be stimulating um, blood flow to the bone. And not only is it going to stimulate blood flow, but bones have hormones that help them find each other. Like, I'm over here, I'm here. It's like, oh, let's get together. Oh, we're back together. True love. We'll never be separated. There's, it's, it it's hormones that can do that. So there's magic in the body's own ability to reset the bone that we want to use. So okay, so um, uh, Susan had a friend, a chiropractor, David Saffron, Savron, David Savron, and I think that was his name, or maybe that's his sister's surname. He's gone now, so I can talk about him. Plus, I can't remember his name absolutely, but David, real big jolly guy, and he was a chiropractor. And he said, I've always wanted to believe in magic. This is magic. I want to see this work. I want to I want to see it work. So, of course, one day he broke his bone and he took an x-ray at his chiropractic clinic, and he was so happy to break a bone. And he put the mullein leaf on, might have been a rib again. I think it was a rib. And it set, and it's magic, it's magic. That he took a x-ray afterwards, and that really showed he had proof magic works. There is magic in the world. Okay. So he had a client that not only was the rib broken, but it jammed together. I think she was a rather small woman, and with a smaller rib cage, but older, and it jammed, and it was not in the right place. So he said, we're going to do an experiment, free treatment. We're going to do experiment. We'll see. We'll put a mullein leaf on, and we're going to take a x-ray today, and then tomorrow come back and we'll take another x-ray. And sure enough, it went back in place. So that fluid to release like that, doing good. Okay, so we learned that, and I began to share this around. And Jim McDonald who's a great herb teacher, if you don't know him, at herbcraft.org, I believe, near northwest of Detroit. So really loves to do herb walks. So I told Jim about this, and he started using it. And also sometimes just to, well, one of his clients used it to kind of adjust his back, to reset, to get the vertebrae in alignment. And Jim had given it for something else. So we learned that made sense. And Jim had this dream where Mullein came and talked to him and said, and so it's a stock. It's a biennial. First year, just perennial. It's just basal rosette of leaves, big furry leaves. And second year, boom, goes up. So if you want the leaf, you or the root, you pick it at the end of the first year before all that power goes into there. And at the end of the second year, we take the flowers for cleaning out the ears and mostly to get wax out of the ears is an old tradition there. And seemed like magical to hear the music of the spheres. And so that's just a guess. We don't know that that's true. So uh so let's see. So he began to use it that way. I've seen that where you give the remedy and the spine even snaps right then. It's like herbal chiropractor, it adjusts the spine by loosening by having all those fluids. Not that you're not going to need to go to the chiropractor perhaps, but or osteopath, but because it lubricates, I would say the synovial fluids. I'd also say perhaps also the well, okay, so what's lubricating between these bundles of muscles as I move my arm here? Um, Actually, that's interstitial fluid, as I've been told, because I couldn't figure it out. Interstitial fluid that flows into um the this flows that seeps through the membranes out of the matrix and just constantly is lubricating those muscles everywhere as they turn and they all need. So possibly this would be a remedy for aging. Um, One way, and magic, this got proved in magical in another way. So one of my students said, gee, there's a horse out on a farm near River Falls, where I now live out that way, but I didn't then. Could we go out? And it's got the hoof gets laminitis when the hoof gets hot, when it breaks through a fence, gets into red clover, eats wrong things, and the hoofs get inflamed. This is just one hoof. And is there anything we can do about it? I now know I would absolutely give dandelion root fresh, even just digging it up. And I have collected um, information on two or three herbs used in folk medicine around the world. Another one is called cape weed, which is in Australia, but it's also here in California. And it probably comes from South Africa or somewhere. I can't remember the Latin name. It's got an unusual Latin name, but there's another hint there if there's not too many cape weeds. Well, so like this can kill a horse. And there's a great story. My all-time favorite story in all creatures great and small, the first year that doctor goes to work with Siegfried. He goes to work in the clinic and they're driving back from I'll get back to my original story with the horse. They're driving through the hills in Yorkshire and they're driving down to get to the town and from where the farm was, and they run across a bend in the road. There's a gypsy family with a gypsy wagon camp there, and the guy raises money to like say, we're serious here. We got some business for you. And they stop, and little girls, there's like three little girls, and they have a pet pony, and it's got terrible, terrible laminitis. And uh, Harriet, yeah, I can't remember his first name, Doctor, and he says, and Siegfried takes over. He's the older, the other guy's kind of an apprentice. And he says, okay, little girls, you guys take it down into that pond there and walk it around and keep the hoofs as cool as you can. Keep walking it until we get back. And they go back to the clinic, and Siegfried reaches up on a high shelf and he pulls down a bloodletting knife or rocket and piece of equipment. And James Harriet goes, whoa, what are and he says, yeah, this is leftover from my predecessor. This is the only thing that'll work. A homeopath would use aconite, but which is the bloodletter, the homeopath's bloodletting. But to or but so they go back and James Harriet describes how the blood shoots across the pond because they really got to get a lot out of there. Because you can imagine, like, how are you going to cut down on that inflammation? You got to really just get rid of the blood, which is carrying the heat. You got to make the horse anemic, basically. and it survives, and they go back to visit it, and the little girls are very impressed. So that's laminitis there. So we got out to the farm, and there's the poor animal down one one hoof only, which might be a different cause than all the hoofs from eating the wrong thing. And um and the coffin bone. So what happens is the hoof swells and the lamina flips over and it lames the horse and it pulls the tendon tight. And you don't know the coffin bone is in there, but it is there in the middle of the hoof. And so what did I think? Why did I think Mullein? But just to get lubrication around the coffin bone. So knocked the um, we knocked the manure off the hoof, and I put mullein on there, and poof, it was like when you cut down a tree, like an elm tree, and the sap shoots out, starts bubbling out. It was like there in a circle around the coffin bone, there was a circle, and this sap, I mean the interstitial fluids or synovial fluids or whatever, boiled out all around that bone, and you can see it jerking, trying to get it back in place. Now, I hope we left that remedy there because my goal was to try and cool off the heat and everything. And I did not know of a remedy for that. Later, Susan was gifted it was a calf, I think, with laminitis, and we did use the um root of the dandelion, unroasted root of dandelion for that calf. And so her neighbors would bring her, like, oh, like a calf had to be pulled out of the womb of the mother and dislocated the shoulder, so they give it to her. Well, Mullein would be great for that. And so she nursed it back to health. So then well, still ended up in the cooking pot, but she got a nice free calf. So so at any rate, um Mullein. Okay, so I was teaching at gyms again. So we both learned about using it for setting bones and lubricating about the bones, and particularly good for the spine. And I do remember at one point in history, at one point when I had when the rib head pops out of the spine, oh, that's painful. And I'm pretty sure that's what I used for that. But if not, I am cured. That was only lasted for a month or two till I figured out what to do. And I definitely tried that herb on that. And maybe with some solid seal to tighten it up afterwards. So I was teaching at Jim McDonald's, and I said, "Oh yeah, Jim, here's something that Jim taught me. I was on an herb walk with Jim, and he said how the leaves towards the center, the little leaves are good for the nerves and are a nerve sedative, and the leaves towards the outside will give you nightmares." And I said, "Thank you, Jim, for teaching me that." Then he looked at me and he said, "I never taught you that." And then I remembered it all flashed back, and it was like, oh yeah, I missed that herb walk. It was 7:30 in the morning, and it was raining cats and dogs. We were both in a cabin with a couple other teachers, and he had to go out at 7:30 in the morning and teach, and I just lay there in bed. I was like, I'm not going out. But somehow I imagined that herb walk occurred, and he taught me that. And it was like, holy cow, I had this whole memory. Well, we have discovered, Jim and I and others, that this plant can plant memories. It's very peculiar. And I began to realize then that what the Native Americans meant when they meant cleaning out the peace pipe, they didn't just mean resins and things, but memories, like people's things that get deposited from traumas. When you're smoking the peace pipe, you like um moves closer to another dimension. And you're more meditative like that. And my friend Peter, that I'm staying at his house, he mentioned at the retreat center, the monastery actually, where he went in California, and the Holy Order of Man. So there's all these old kind of patriarchs and in their middle age, and they were smoking pipes, all the guys. And it was like, yeah, that's because it kind of makes you daydream and go into that other world a little bit. That's what the peace pipe is for. Well, so okay, wow, we learned that, so, yeah, okay, huh? What, why would anybody want to give anybody nightmares? Onward, 2 years later, Jim and I are teaching at a conference in southern Minnesota. So fun. Bonnie Krakow set these conferences up. She no longer does that, but for 5 years in a row, or every other year, once in a while, we would have a conference there on the Minnesota-Iowa border. And I was speaking and I mentioned this story, and this woman raised her hand and she said, I'm a witch, and we use the outer leaf of the mullein to give people nightmares, and we call it graveyard dust. And if you look at mullein leaf, that name fits for the older leaf. The younger leaf, happy little shinier, greener leaf, and the older leaf, like, oh, I'm tired, I'm lying down, I can't pick up, I'm gonna turn into dust pretty soon. And so I thought, wow, well, why would you want to give anybody a nightmare? Well, if you're training people, psychic powers, etc. I had to figure this out later on because I got attacked by a poorly trained witch, like boundaries. And if you have a student that just wants to abuse psychic powers rather than really, you should not be using them. You should be uh, training your inner psychic energy and your psyche and your psychic energy, and just in order to become a more disciplined spiritual warrior. And that whole realm is a realm of danger. It's good to be aware there. Well, you go around, like, you don't want to be write the law to the on your own, like who suffers and who doesn't. That's what a lot of out of control witches do, because I'm going to curse this person or I'm going to bless this person. And that later happened to me. Some novices attacked me, and um, I I had this crow was hanging around. Blackbird picked it up from another psychic attack. The crow didn't want to stay with that woman. She was so mean. So the crow had been around a while, and this person attacked me. And it's like, you can't do this. You can't, like, draw the law to yourself. You can't go around deciding who's good and who's bad according to your lights, and you're not even very disciplined anyways. And I would just hold you to the fire and not let you go until you deal with your stuff. Alligator medicine. Bring them underwater and just have them stay there until they recapitulate themselves. They but I don't have the time. And then the little blackbird came and said, "Oh, I'll do it." And I'm like, "Well, how would you do that?" And he said, "I'll give her a nightmare every time she abuses psychic energy." Ah, and then I saw, oh, that's a teaching method. So a little bit, that's magical in a way. Now, Mullen doesn't like to be bound by things like psychic abuse or psychic energy. It really is crazy. It goes to the imaginary realm, and it's planting images and working with the imagination, which is a higher level than psychic energy, and really the magical level and the manifestational level. Imagine it and it will happen, kind of um, dream it and they will come, or whatever that is. And build it and they will come. Well, dream it and they will come to the building when you did it. So yeah, so uh I can really see where mullein would be. It is a smoking herb. It was used for smoking. I was at a factory it was like out of business for 50 years in Vermont since before World War II or so. It was probably 2000 or so I was there. But they made a smoking formula, and Mullen, now it was like, I don't know, tourist place or something, or abandoned, I can't remember. But there the recipe was there, and Mullen was one of the ingredients. So Mullen cultivates were smoked in the old days to soothe the lungs. And Uva ursi is also in the smoking mixture. And I had an opportunity recently, we were just doing a pipe ceremony for deceased person here in Northern California, and well, we smoked some uva ursi and other stuff, and wow, was that soothing to the lung. I couldn't believe it. I'm too prejudiced in favor of teas and tinctures. But the old timers, they knew all sorts of stuff, and Native Americans taught the pioneers and the blacks and the whites in the country then to how to do all this stuff. So so it has that smoking quality, but every once in a while it'll throw up a memory that didn't happen. But when you experience it, it's like, well, which is the real memory? It's so real. It's just okay. Uh, when you go to meet your maker on the other side and you're recapitulating your life and those two memories come up, I think that other one, they'll both come up. Maybe you could choose. The magical one would be funner. So, um, Jim had a dream too. Um, so he was just waking up, and this voice said, "Now remember what we told you." And what they had, and he said, "Oh, okay." And what they said was on a stalk, the the leaves on the top of the stalk, the top is just flowers, but the leaves towards the top are beneficial for uh yeah, yes, those tall. The leaves up to that part are beneficial for the top of the spine, and then the middle of the spine. That's not well in there. Then the middle of the spine is the middle leaves, and the lower part is the uh lower part of the spine. So, oh, he did remember that. Although Jim kind of he had his own, you have your own free will, and he kind of at certain times he prefers the root because he feels like you the root has all that energy ready to boom, shoot the spine up straight, shoot, and do that. So you got your choice there, and yeah, there's that furry leaf. So um and there it is when it's totally ripened, and there's the rosette. There isn't really any dried out old leaves there in those pictures because, well, we just didn't think when we're making the cards that that would be too interesting. But anyways, maybe it's a secret, and here you have that story. So okay, Mullein is magical, and we humans can't control it. It's got its own agenda, which is pretty good, and we should remember that about creation. Life is a mystery, we're a mystery, the plants have mysterious properties. Some of them are pretty darn predictable and mundane, but not necessarily. Okay, we have some questions. Let's answer, or hopefully some observations on the use of Mullein and peculiar stories, if anybody else, or just plain setting bones or coughs or anything. Yeah, thank
You're
you.
open to all of it. They'll be thrilled. We have, yeah, lots of comments. Holly says, I smoked Mullein during COVID and I never had any breathing issues after doing so.
Oh, wow. Okay. Good.
Plenty
Thanks.
of questions about the structural use of Mullein. Sounds like you're game for that too?
Yeah.
Okay. Deborah asks, do the bone healing herbs work for rebuilding teeth?
We use oak bark for that, and I strongly suspect that oak bark could be used for things like osteoporosis and stuff. I use calcium phosphate 6X homeopathic for um, osteoporosis. And second, he who must not be named, he was a magician, one of my Muskogee teachers. He said he had the little old ladies where he grew up, he used to do beading with them. And they shared, so they had a formula that was one part bone set, one part motherwort, which looks like it's fine during the wintertime, sticking up, and a pinch of lobelia. And they made a tea, and they use that for uh, improving or preventing or whatever for osteoporosis. So I won't say we cured it, but I did have one woman in And this is magical, really. In Huffmanton, North Carolina, she called me about something else and said, how do I know you?" And she said, "Oh, you cured me. Is her words. You cured me of the osteoporosis." I said, "Oh, really?" And she said, "Yeah, I grew 2 inches in 6 months." It's like, what? What did I give you? Calcium phosphate 6X. But I gave my mother that. She was about 88 or so. She'd lost 2 inches over 20 years. It took 2 years for her to gain the two inches back. She gained 2 inches back. She still had a quarter inch she never gained back. So I am a believer there, but there's some formulas. I I wouldn't use comfrey for that. I'd use comfrey if you have a broken bone, you just have to heal in an odd place. So my grandfather was about 76. He broke his collarbone, which again, you can't set. You immobilize an arm. And I mean, you immobilize a body part to an old person, it's going to be a long time for them to be able to start using that again. Well, so after a month, it wasn't setting. So he called me up and I sent out bone set one part, comfrey one part, solid seal one part to put on. It was in alcohol actually. And after next checked in with the doctor a month later, was healing fine. So that was good. So I wanted the comfrey there because comfrey's a quick bone healer, and there's just times when you can't. Maybe those other herbs would have done it overnight. I don't know, but not literally overnight, but quickly. But you really want it to work because 76. It's a little hard to heal bones as you get older. So more questions.
Well, Angela brings up a good point about the magical aspects of herbs. She says, always pay attention when a plant comes up in my yard that I didn't plant. Someone close by usually needs it.
Yeah, right. Or one year when the plant is in tremendous, there's just tons of elder or plantain or something. There's always plantain or something in just great abundance. Save that up for that year. Will be needed.
For
Yeah.
sure. We also, I'll be recommending some classes too that are on these topics. And by the way, at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism, you can post questions to the teachers within the site. And so it's not just limited to class time. So you may want to check out, for example, the first aid class or the class of fascia, tension, and pain. And in a couple months here, we'll have a class on the musculoskeletal system, which all three of those will cover
Oh,
basically all the questions that are coming in, if not already
yeah.
covered.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes. This is pretty much what I know about Mullein. William Lesaussier said, when the voice is constricted, when the voice is real high, when it's constricted in here, or when it's real low, Mullein is indicated. I have not really used that, but he was a master. So yeah. So people, those are what are called specific indications. Yeah. Okay. Any more questions there? Then we'll go on again.
yeah. Stephen asks, Matt, have you noticed these magical herbs affect things in a more metaphorical or non-physical effects alongside the physical? Mullen and Solomon seal evening out, even out or straighten up interpersonal relationships that are out of joint, for example?
Yes. Okay, we'll talk about Agrimony and then Cinquefoil, which are more magical even than Mullein because we know what they do. It's very precise. And then I can talk about Solomon Seal, which combines very well with those herbs and has some magical properties. And I would say, as a magical herb goes, Solomon Seal is pretty sane. Mullein is like unpredictable and crazy, and Agrimony will do things you just can hardly believe. Like, wow, that bad tenant left in 3 days? What? You know, I don't believe it. Um, and it always, I call it kind of justice plant too. It never imposes on the wrong person. It, it always establishes justice between two people, hierarchical between uh, employer, employee, or landlord, tenant. Whoever's fault it is, it establishes and also legal cases and settlements of estates and wills and things. Really valuable there. Agrimony, yeah. And you can get the Bach flower essence agrimony. We'll talk about this in a second. We still have a question or two?
Oh yeah, we have plenty. Do you
Okay.
want to continue on Mullein, or do you want to move on to some other more the magic? Because these are more physically related. Just checking in because we do there are a lot coming in.
Okay. Um, well, we'll go on to agrimony. If there's some questions, also comments, case histories on Mullein, we can also include those. But that seemed like a good segue to go on to agrimony. So agrimony is not in the top 50. For some people, it's not in the top 100 of herbs, and so there's various herb lines where you can't find it, but it is really worth having. And one person who did use it was Dr. Bach, Dr. Edward Bach, with the Bach flower essences. So it's made from the flowers. And he used agrimony for basically his description. It sounds like caught in a bind, um, like tension hidden behind a facade, so they're outwardly real, oh, nice to see you, and they may not even be mad at you, but underneath they're like, oh, no, I just hate these people. I want to go somewhere else. I don't want to be here. Or they're like suave, sophisticated, like like one woman, I was like, it took a case history. After 55 minutes, I thought, wow, I ought to be taking, she's so sophisticated, I ought to be studying. I had to be going to her. That's and then that was like the turning point. And then all it came out in that last 5 minutes. I thought, oh, she needs agrimony. She's kind of hiding that. So hidden things like that. Um, so it's for the facade. Now, one thing I learned, this is so crazy. One of my students, but she's graduated so long ago, she's more like a contemporary. That's what happens with your students, they become your peers. And this is Erica Fargione, who teaches at Minneapolis Community Technical College. They have a 1-year program there in Minneapolis, and herb program. And she learned to use agrimony for Tourette's syndrome. And if you know Tourette's, they like a neck spasm, and they shout things, this loud voice that embarrass everybody, like, oh my God. And things like that everyone else keeps hidden behind the facade. So we see that this normalizes the facade. This is useful for both holding everything back and expressing too much. She had a dozen case histories. Now I only had one case like this, and I used blue vervain, and like I've told this story. He's going, how come nobody wants to help me? And like yelling in the herb store, it's a Saturday, there's like 10 people. Oh, nobody wants to help me. And it's like Bob, the owner store, says, have you tried to help John here? And I said, no, I'd been out of town. And so we sat down and we're sitting 2 chairs. There's people everywhere all around us. And he's like, neck like that. And I said, so what's the problem? And he said, too much masturbation. There's people all around. I was like, oh, okay. Uh, any, uh, it, it, any reason you think why this might have, why, or anything more you want to say about it? He said, I think I might have been child abused as a child. Like, oh, and then he said, I think I was weaned too early. Okay, so well, so this herb this was magical, keeps coming to my mind. Blue vervain, blue vervain, blue vervain. And I said, oh, I think I could help you. And I went and got some vervain, and I gave it to him, and he just relaxed, like, ah. And that had never did that again. But on the other hand, I used to run into him in the store at the bus stop, and he would say, you got a remedy for impotence? It's like, oh, that's right. Yeah. Yeah. That was his complaint. Got a remedy for impotence. Uh, what's the problem? Impotence. Uh, got a reason why? Too much masturbation. Oh, God. Oh, golly. I felt like, oh, this is a training film for teenage boys, maybe. So All right, so back to agrimony, and those plants do go together very well because they release tension, and blue vervain has a lot of tension in the neck. So, okay, so agrimony, it's good for that. It's good for sharp pain. I found out it's good for pain when you hold your breath. Like passing a gallstone one time. And supposedly passing kidney stones, although I can't remember. I may have used it, but not gotten feedback, but I haven't used it much for that. But that's holding the breath. And it turns out so innocently, later I read a couple years later, when you hold your breath, you release endorphins, like holding the breath in pain. You release endorphins, which are the body's natural opiates. So, in fact, this remedy is um, causing pain relief, actually, is suited to cases where your body is suppressing the pain because you don't want to be on opioids. You don't want to be on endorphins because it's temporary. So you see the pain is being suppressed as if behind a facade. And I have actually wondered if this remedy would be good. Oh, Dr. Bach used it for mostly alcoholism, and other people have used it for drug addiction. And I would even wonder about opioids and also pain remedies because you're suppressing the pain, and agrimony helps you breathe through the pain, live through the pain. So, and because of these other things, agrimony has a pretty wide set of uses. I was reminded of it. I didn't have any here where I am, and I had gut spasms, and I noticed just personal. My poop was kind of yellowish, and I went about 5 times that morning a couple days ago, and it's like, oh, the gallbladder is overactive and things aren't coordinated. That is a agrimony problem. The overactive bile. Oh, I gotta go all the time. I gotta go. And then the spasm, I think, is probably intestine, gallbladder, like boom, boom. And Dorothy Hall, the great Australian herbalist, does mention this. She has some material on agrimony. I think it's in her book. For when the digestion is not coordinated. So that used to cause biliousness. She would have had older clients in the old days that had malaria, that malaria would cause this kind of problem. And where the digestive tract is not coordinated. And they called that biliousness in the old days, the bile coming up, spitting. That might be a symptom. And that's certainly going the wrong way and not coordinated. Yeah. So, so there's a bunch of uses of agrimony, but I also found this is where it gets truly magical. If you wear it or put it on documents or put it in an envelope with the documents, it will cause justice to occur. Delayed justice has been delayed. See, justice has been delayed is like that facade. There's someone trying to control it, and you got to get it out of that. And it turned out when I investigated, well, I just happened to find that its cousin, so agrimony looks tortured. It looks like one time I remember saying to a woman, yeah, it's like Tom and Jerry, the cartoon. Yeah, that's how I feel. That's my life. I feel just like a Tom and Jerry cartoon. Actually, she got more benefit from borage, which is for being driven crazy, especially by your mother. She was 75, her mother was like 95, still calling her up and telling her what to do all the time. So, in fact, there was and I didn't know that about that's good for mother-daughter relationships, but that I saw that somewhere. I was like, what? Wow, that really worked. And in fact, then her relationship with her daughters shifted. One left because she was being too demanding, and the other one stepped in and stay with us. We'll take care of you. 75, you know. So it was great. It was really a great thing. But back to I keep on interrupting. Back to agrimony. You could combine it with all these three remedies are very similar in some ways. But so agrimony or cinquefoil, the cousin. Cinquefoil looks like a hand, and as he who must not be named would used to say, anything five fingers can do, the hand of the witch. 5 fingers can undo the plant that looks like a hand. Now, I did find that saying in Joseph Meyer's book, so he didn't originate it, but yeah, it's old folklore. And so that would include, there's a lot of plants that have 5 leaves, and there may be an interference element on some of these. I don't know about the ginsengs, they have 5 leaves, but I don't see how that fits in there. But with Cinquefoil, it's like it's like the boss-employee relationship. I first felt it like where the employer is telling you what to do all the time, too much, overseeing you. Or it could be a uh, rebellious kind of employee that's not following directions, it's being hard. An employee that's throwing the whole company off. Um, It could be all, and it could be a landlord, problem tenants that are not nice. It just goes on and on. It's so many case histories. My favorite one was my friend Jean. Uh, so I called her out. How would you like to do something? This weekend, go to a movie or something. And she was Thursday or Friday, and she was almost in tears on the phone. She said, "Well, I think I lost my job," and she had a job she really liked, and she was paid by the word as a writer. And she said how so her employer had always tolerated that she liked to work at home and writing 3 cents a word at that time. And her oldest kid in high school, middle kid in middle school, youngest kid in grade school, like like she could be there all day long, work at home, perfect for her. And then the employer's brother became accountant, and he was like, no, no, we want them all here. We can watch over them somehow. Well, they don't need to be watched over, and maybe that worked for some of them, but no, no, I can't, and she and the boss happen to run into each other. The hairdresser, this is also a remedy for hair. When you feel like you have to do something with your hair, or your hair is falling out, or alopecia, spots. And I got a story about that. So, uh, then, um, so she said, I think, and we argued, right? We yelled at each other right in the doorway of the hairdresser. I think I lost my job, but my boss said, well, let's meet next Tuesday. So I think I'm gonna be fired. So she came in, and her boss took her by the hands and said, well, you're really a good worker. We'll bend over backwards to help you in any way that we can. So keep working at home. So yay. So she said, when and after this happened, Matt, thanks for the magic. Oh, and what we did was we stuck I came in to town. I lived in the country. Went out to a movie, but put a Cinquefoil leaf under her computer because that was the workspace. So okay, so I was teaching a class in Massachusetts at Margie Flint's. This was one of the first times I shared this, and there was a woman in the class, and she got back to me. I mean, this is the most reliable thing I know about herbs, is agrimony will correct the situation in a hierarchical, where there's a hierarchical problem. It won't, it's like not for like lovers, or it would only work in a divorce or a marriage or siblings if maybe if alcoholism or drug abuse is involved, or person's lording over the other or something. Oh, yeah, yeah. We just thought of an instance. Yes. And so we will not say the person's name in public. Yeah, she who should not be named. Okay. Um, okay, um, so the woman, so she owned some land on Cape Ann, where Gloucester, Massachusetts is, and yeah, 3 acres, which is kind of a big, it's medium-sized chunk, there's a whole bunch of little parcels all over the place, and she wanted to keep it, didn't want to break it up, and the town council, they decided, I don't know, those Gloucester, it could have been some other village out there. No, we're gonna put a road through, you gotta, and then we want to put that road through, and you gotta you gotta, and you're gonna have to subdivide and blah blah blah. And they had their minds made up, and she's just despairing. She can't get them to pay attention. She doesn't want the road. It's really no one else's business. And her friend says, "No, no, no, don't lose faith. Like this is the last meeting they're gonna decide at. Here, take this Cinquefoil leaf or agrimony or maybe agrimony flower essence. Put it in your pocket." So they go. They both go to the meeting, and so they noticed this little guy came in that had never been there before. So and all the townsmen, selectmen come in, and they're all and then sitting down, and the issue comes up, and she doesn't want to do it. And the guy that she'd never seen before, he said like, "Oh, I don't get it. Like, if she doesn't want to do it, there's really no reason why we have to put a road in there, is there?" And they're going, "Oh, yeah, yeah, that's true." It's like boom. So yeah, that came back because I was teaching a series of classes there at Margie Flint's. Margie had a good one too, where she was a guy came to see her at her clinic, and he talked and medical problems a little bit, and then finally at the very end he's just getting ready to go and said, do you have a remedy to get rid of a bad tenant?" And she said, "Oh yeah, I can help you with that." So they took the Agrimony, put it around the four corners of the house and on the stairs. It was a duplex on the stairs up to her unit. And and he said, "I knew you'd know how to do that. I knew you were a witch," he said. And and the tenant stormed down in 3 days. She'd been, procrastinating, did all sorts of stuff behind on her rent for months, and came down in 3 days and said, "I hate this place. I'm gonna move right away. I'm giving my notice." Yeah, okay, good. And um, so we had a great cure. Uh, bone setting at her house. It was either her daughter or her. It was Mullein. Mullein was right outside the front door. One of them really sprained their ankle, not broken, and that helped tremendously. So, um, okay, so good elder to learn from in Marblehead, Massachusetts. Um, so I was teaching up in Vermont, and one woman, she had purchased a parcel. So there were the old Vermonters that lived there their whole life for 3, 4, 10 generations, and then there was the rich people moving in and buying land, and there was like a state highway there, and there was like a little side road, and it went up a hill, and the town guy who was in charge of making the decisions, they just had some guy who like shoveled the streets and drove the the truck in the wintertime. He was the one in charge of where the roads go in and stuff. And so no, it's got to come right off the highway. No, no. In any village I've ever seen, they'd want it off the side road, but he didn't know that yet. That piece of information was not widespread. So he wanted it off the main thing, and she wanted it off the side. So she arranged for him to come down and meet her at the place and take a look at everything. He felt it was too slanted there, and she had a friend there, and she had Cinquefoil in her pocket. And they argued for like 40, 45 minutes. And then all of a sudden he said, "Well, actually, I think this could work if we did it on the side road." And he, and he totally agreed. And um, she rushed down to the town hall to file the papers. And her friend said, "How did you do that?" But in that same class was, I thought, one of the most remarkable cases where, so the woman worked for the school district somewhere in Massachusetts, and they put her in charge of, so there were some very rich people that wanted special ed for their kid all the time. And the school district just wanted to give 1 hour a day or 1 hour a week or something. They didn't feel he was that dissociated from normalcy. And they really wanted this special education for him. He was about 8. So they got a lawyer and to meet with her. And she said, "Well, do I get a lawyer?" And her employer, the school district, said, "No, no, you'll do okay on your own." What? So they come, and she had her agrimony with her. And she said the lawyer started like arguing her side. the lawyer for the parents. They even took him out in the hall and yelled at him. And they didn't press on that. Another person in one of those two classes, her brother-in-law, no, her husband and his brother-in-law, they were settling, I don't know if it was an estate or a loan, or it was like $300,000. It was a big deal, and it was hanging over both of them. And the brother-in-law was they were both lawyers. That was the problem. And the brother-in-law was like, blow it off. He didn't want to settle, and her husband was frustrated by it. And so she said, "Here, we'll try this." So legal papers, put a bottle, put some drops on the legal papers. I can't remember what she did, but that's what I've mentioned. But someone recently talked about putting them in an envelope with the agrimony, and that's, I think, even better idea. And one of my students, so people are always improving on ideas. And so they did this, and within a week, the brother-in-law called and he said, "Yeah, I'm ready to sell. I will not settle for less than 295,000." And her husband said, "Yeah, okay, all right, let's do that." And then she said, "Whoa, phew." So she took the yeah, she must have put agrimony on the papers that she could remove. She took it off, and he was like, "Oh, I'm not sure." So she put it back on there, and they got the deal through. Yeah. So I have seen this again and again. I'm only going to give one more physical symptom because it's kind of strange. And if any of you are hairdressers, this would be a really good thing to know about, is that women who need agrimony often do things with their hair. And one of the things they do, what is that? Dyeing it, straightening it, something kind of wrecks your hair after a while, but just doing things to your hair all the time is kind of an agrimony thing. So I haven't run into that with men, but with women. Okay, so agrimony and Cinquefoil and magical. Let's take some questions, comments, case histories here. Yeah.
Yeah. So Ava was wondering, how do you use the leaves of agrimony, or you use them pretty interchangeably, agrimony and cinquefoil?
Yeah.
It's an abstract court case for someone else far away.
Oh, well, I think you do have to get if you can get copies of the court papers, you can do it at your house. You could send it to them. Um, maybe if you just even, if they sent you a photo online or by, if you printed it off, or, yeah, now it's so easy to do, or even just the numbers of the case and all that. I don't really know how those documents, I would want, something that represented the case well. Yeah, and I have put drops on it. I put the tincture bottle on it. I put Cinquefoil leaf on it. I haven't used the agrimony leaf so much because when I use the leaf, I like the Cinquefoil just looks like that hand. But agrimony, when you pick it, this is important. It has a stalk like this. It has yellow flowers. Pick it before it goes to flower. I actually like the tincture before it goes to flower, so I'm not a flower essence person with agrimony. And then pick off the sides and not the crown, because that's going to become the flowers, and you want to respect. See, that's oh, yeah, one story. That's the leader of the pack, and you want the leaves off the sides, and you want to preserve that magic in the way as he who must not be named said, we believe in the doctrine of signatures, and we not only want to use the plant that looks like the problem, we want to make it look like the problem. Yeah, there you can see the tension there. And um yeah, and those little stalks sticking up, you don't pick that part, pick the side. And um let's see, and it's a little sweet still, which is not once it really gets putting on the little cockleburs on it. So um I usually make a tincture. I do often just pick the Cinquefoil though. Um oh, I had a case, Cinquefoil case. So I was visiting my friends Ellen and Bob, they both passed away in Michigan. And Ellen had a really bad asthma. Oh, this is magical. He who must not be named was even, this is in my book of Herbal Wisdom. So she grew up in this 36 room mansion in Cumberland, Maryland, which sounds great, except that, you know, the insurance was like a $5 million replacement value, a $150,000 resale value because it was such a depressed town by that point. But she grew up there. It was probably worth more when she lived there. And uh and one night she looked out her window and there was this little half human, half animal being standing on the roof of one of the porches. And he turned and looked at her. He was like, had a little coat on. He was a little fox human. And she was so shocked. She was 13 years old. But she got asthma and she had it the rest of her life until 75. She died recently. And um, I didn't know that background then, but she came out into the room. She was the asthma was so bad. Bob said, I've never seen her that bad. And she was tortured to capture her breath, which is a Agrimony Cinquefoil um, indication. And I must have had some intuition. I'd seen the plant, but I went out the side of their yard. It was just getting dark, and there was a Cinquefoil, and I gave her that, and it was like saved her life. They both told me the worst she'd ever been, Bob said, and she was generally better after that. But so when He Who Must Not Be Named came to visit him, she'd inherited that house by then. He said, and she told that story. He said, "Oh, that was a shapeshifter in your family, and he would have killed you, but you were related, so he decided not to." Oh, okay. Did turn out that she's a descendant of Nancy Walker, the last Cherokee, beautiful woman. It was like a matriarch. So she was part Cherokee. She certainly looked it, and she probably did have shapeshifters in her family. But yeah, that was always he was always good for something totally bizarre too. Like he was someone who did not the world was magical to him. In fact, I learned to believe in magic by hanging out with him. Although Susan was teaching me that too, but he wouldn't compromise. He was like raised in another culture where magic was real, and he wouldn't agree with the white man's view that there was no magic. And I do have to say, sometimes he'd be wrong. There was a rational explanation, but wow, sometimes you really learned about the magic from him. He was dangerous too. That's why I don't mention his name. I don't want to, what's it called? Invoke him. His name even invokes, well, okay, so we won't talk about him. So that was interesting. That was Agrimony Cinquefoil. Yeah, more questions there.
You bet. So you've mentioned before, this is kind of a prelude to some of the other questions about, if you're using an herb like this to influence a situation, you've
Yeah.
mentioned before that there are times where it is morally appropriate. Would you say a bit more on that?
Yeah, well, I didn't study this branch of magic really intentionally. I just discovered that about agrimony, and that's the one herb that I really do use like this. And that's because it always acts appropriately. It never forces the issue. And I remember one person, I helped her by phone or email, so I didn't meet her in person, but I remember her saying, "Oh, I see, I caused the divorce." It was like she realized she was at fault. So it will, if you are at fault, you can, this herb will not, it's incorruptible. It will not change it in your favor. It's like you gotta be, you gotta be, it really, it works for victims better. I hate to use the word, but it gets you out from under the power of caught in a bind. Yeah. So another question.
Kristen asked, when working with agrimony for a hierarchical dispute, do you need to call on the herb to help you or set an intention? I want to use it at work to settle dispute between a boss and coworkers.
Yeah.
Should I sprinkle it around the space or shall we drink it?
Yeah. Oh, no, I wouldn't give it to them. You don't even need to tell them about it, but if they're in on it, that's okay. I would put it across the doorway, um, even of the boss's office. Like if a person, that's another thing, moral issue. If the person is inflicting on you, you do have the right to use herbs that change them because they're in your space. Like even to spray an herb other than agrimony around just because they need that blue vervain or something. They're a fanatic, blue vervain. But there was a case like this. So this woman was in a business in Massachusetts, one of those classes again, and there was like 100 people employed, and um, this boss was really obnoxious to everybody, and the higher ups did not see it, and um, she sprinkled it across her doorway and across his doorway, and 2 months later, 2 weeks later, he was busted uh, downloading pornography off the internet, and he was demoted and stuck in a cubicle by himself. So it sounds like they began to understand too that he just didn't get along with anybody. So that settled it. Um, I had another case like that, not pornography, that another boss. I remember one woman, she worked for old Navy guy. It was on a Navy magazine or a veterans magazine, and he just was so hard on her. And and she put the agrimony around her. And one day he stuck his head in the door and he said, "Did I ever tell you, Deborah, you do really good work. Thank you." And then he left, and she said that was the most I could ever get out of him. So yeah, yeah. What? Oh, yeah. Oh, we just thought of another case we want to use this. Holy cow. Yeah. Wow, why didn't I think of that? Huh. All right. That's a perfect thing. Whew. Okay. And if she is at fault a little bit, which she may be, yeah, but he's really at fault. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Okay, clarify it too. That can help. Yeah. Let's see, next thing.
Okay, let's see. So many things. Can you use Cinquefoil and Agrimony together, or is that overkill?
I've never done that. I think of it as overkill. Yeah, right. Yeah. Good question. Next.
Hector says, I have a friend involved in a pretty acrimonious custody battle. Would agrimony help in this case? Could it be potentiated perhaps with a herb related to father-daughter relationships?
Let's see. I have not thought of that. Um, okay. So this is all I know for the situation. Okay, so I would use agrimony, and you're gonna hope that the truth comes out that like everybody sees what is best. Okay, that's the first thing. The second remedy I'd use there, Dr. Bach taught us also, walnut. I use the black walnut from North America though. Walnut for getting out from under the power of someone who is dominating you, like kind of like um, well, usually it's a parent-child relationship, and walnut, like the nut falls off the tree and it hits the ground, boom, boom, and bounces away. And if it hits the ground, it doesn't bounce far enough, it suppresses it. Like the walnuts that stay under the tree can't grow. But if it bounces away down the hill a little bit, or uh, even up the hill, or just out of the way a little bit, then it can grow. So it's you get out of the nest. Now, okay, but that works differently when there's a marriage breaking open and children are involved. This helps this helps the child um who's too really stricken by the breakup. And so time I was talking, the girl was 13, the father was on the phone, the mother and father were getting a divorce. And she was on the phone too. And he was talking quite openly about it. And she was been constipated pretty much for 2 weeks. I mean, not total completely, but hadn't gone very much for 2 weeks. And so it was a remedy for constipation. I thought, oh, black walnut we're always used for it's used for constipation and for too much under the power of another, which can be, you know, no, it could have been a good thing. She's being kicked out of the nest maybe prematurely. That's another use of agrimony of walnut. I had another case like that. So so I said, oh, I think this is a case where we could use the Bach flower essence walnut. I just wanted to use a flower essence. And she literally that second had to run and go to the bathroom. It was like there was like not a pause even. It was like crazy. And I have to presume that helped. Another case was a kid whose his father didn't want anything to do with him, and his mother died when he was 3, and he was adopted by another family. So it was like not enough of the parenting. And he had impetigo, which is a black walnut cure condition that like Dr. Christopher had a good case history in his book, The School of Natural Healing. Oh yeah, yeah. Like there's veterans coming back from the South Seas and they have impetigo and all sorts of skin disease. And one had his head was so covered with with impetigo. There was a meeting. I'll get back to that other case. There was a meeting and of the doctors, and they finally decided, well, we're gonna just have to let you go. You're in such bad shape, and there's nothing we know to do for you, or we've already tried. And the man got really mad. He said, I entered the army a clean man, and you want to send me home like this? And Dr. Christopher just he was like just a corporal that ran the pharmacy, like locked the door, and pharmacy wasn't as many drugs that people abuse and stuff. So he was just kind of in control of the pharmacy, and they didn't have a lot of pharmacists in those days. I remember talking to a pharmacist who was served in World War II. No, he served as a pharmacist, and he wasn't even a pharmacist. They just didn't have people for that then. Well, so Dr. Christopher said, "Would you mind if I tried to help this guy?" And they're like, "Oh, what? Who are you?" Like, well, okay, we'll give you 1 week. Okay. So he ran out. It might have been Hawaii or California, and they had black walnut. They would have been planted out in Hawaii if that's where it was. And he took the leaves and he made a hat for him, probably with gauze or something. He had the pharmacy supplies. And then he kept that moistened with black walnut tea for the next week, and then it's very dramatic, and that's the way Dr. Christopher was. And at the meeting, then he unveiled, they took it off, and it was all clean. So back to the jungle. Well, this young boy, the impetigo, it took care of the impetigo, which is just on his leg or arm. I can't remember which one it was. So another question.
We have a testimonial.
Good.
Kelly says, we had a bad construction company improperly install plumbing in a bathroom remodel that caused mold. They ignored us for months until I put the dried leaf of agrimony into a gallon Ziploc bag along with the work contract. They began talking to us immediately and we resolved the problem in less than a week. Thanks to you, Matt, the agrimony helped us.
There's so many situations like this. If it doesn't work within 2 weeks, it's not going to work. But I've never known it not to work. So yeah, we thought of another. Yeah.
Keisha asked, I step away, but regarding mother-daughter relationships, how would you use it? Do I sprinkle it on my mother every chance I get? LOL.
Um,
I find a spray
so
bottle works the best, especially
yes,
on this
uh, yes,
your stream.
yeah. There's another mother-daughter relationship remedy. Maybe it might be Vitex, but I know because this was one that surprised me when I saw it. Like, wow, somebody else used it that way. So the borage, though, and borage is when you're being driven crazy. So if you're you're taking it philosophically, you might just need agrimony.
What
But what's that?
motherwort?
Yes, that's the other one. Okay, it's motherwort. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, and that one's very nice. That's also mother baby, mother child. Yeah, but also mother daughter. So,
Someone is commenting apparently knows a fair amount about Dr. Christopher. Recall that Dr. Christopher did not have any black walnut.
oh,
Sorry, it moved.
that's true.
Um,
Did he
he
use?
and had to get it sent to him, and he could not properly tincture it. So he did a rapid tincture, and it still worked for clearing his head of all the scabs, etc., in the archived newsletters.
Ah, excellent. Thank you. Well, I had the essential parts. Next.
And someone's just saying a testimonial of a of a conversation this morning about, well, something related. Okay, here's one that I think multiple people will be interested in. So, if a mining company is going to destroy a sacred ground, would agrimony or cinquefoil work, and how would you apply it? And I think this is related. She messaged a few minutes later. The court case is over. The bill is before House committee.
Oh, okay. I would put it on the bill. I'd get a copy of the bill and put it on the bill. And wow, that's so big. I would like a report back on that. That's so big that, but these big mining companies do get stopped sometimes. Also, they might actually say, well, we'll leave that area there or something. I mean, they don't, they just think bulldoze, bulldoze, and you might be able to change it a little or a lot. Yeah, yeah.
With Ariel's asking, or saying, with Cinquefoil, is there a desert version that can be engaged for the same magical purposes? I'm guessing there isn't a dry land agrimony.
Hmm. Well, definitely you can grow it in a garden almost anywhere. And so the European Agrimonia eupatoria is the official one used in Western herbalism, but I tend to use Agrimonia grissopatella, which is native to Eastern North America, just because it I actually like the taste better. Um, there's an agrimony that grows up onto the Canadian Shield, not as tasty. There's agrimonies throughout North America, and there's cinquefoils, and then there's cinquefoil is a weed that's gotten established all over the place. There's about 5 different cinquefoils. Um,
She
I would
says,
where's
sorry, this might help. She followed up. I ask because cinquefoil is a potentilla, which is more tolerant of lower moisture in various climates.
I think it is more tolerant. Yeah. And a peculiarity about agrimony is when something's damaged in the forest, like a tree falls over, or they ran a bulldozer in there a little bit, like agrimony grows there. It grows on damaged land that's shaded, very unusual. And but it'll grow in the garden, it'll grow out in the sun fine. So
Okay. Ayla is asking, can you use agrimony and cinquefoil interchangeably, or are there cases in which you would use one or the other?
yeah, they're interchangeable except if you're trying to address something on the hand, like a rash or just something on the hand, then you want to make a salve or out of cinquefoil. Yeah. One of the old also the agrimony, this is unbelievable. It will straighten the baby, like get the baby in the womb, the cord is wrapped around it wrong, it will straighten that out. And I remember one woman, well, that wasn't determined, but she was at the 7th month and she was so tense and she called me up. Said, I just can't sleep. I only have 2 weeks before the baby comes, and then I'll never be able to do anything again for the next 18 years. And like I'll just be overwhelmed. And like like I just can't get any sleep, and my job is to sleep. I was like, oh, your job? Oh, agrimony. So I gave her agrimony, that calmed her down totally because she couldn't really even use those last 2 months, and had a successful birth. Okay, so but the agrimony child's problem starts almost in the birth canal. Um, Improper position, cord wrapped around the baby. So I told a midwife in New Mexico about this, and 10 years later I got the report back, and she'd used it dozens of times. It really does work. And Cinquefoil, I think, may even work even better. Cinquefoil has that hand, the hand of the midwife. And um, if it's handwork, if it's handiwork, you might want to go to Cinquefoil. So there's a famous Greek herbal called the herbal Materia Medica, De Materia Medica by Dioscorides, and the 1665 translation by John Goodyear under Cinquefoil, he gives us, he says, and so if it's not in Dioscorides, he says, if somebody is interfering with your life, you wash your hands with Cinquefoil. I thought, wow, okay. Good to see that verification. Yeah. Oh, next one.
Yeah. Ava asks, does bought cinquefoil leaf work as well? And you mentioned 5 types of cinquefoil. Does it matter which one?
Uh, I don't know that it matters that much, but I actually use the one called sept foil because it has 2 little leaves, so it's 7 leaves. Because it's the tensest looking of all, but and so I haven't used the other ones, but I can't imagine that they are not also useful. And I even have some suspicion that some other cousins would be useful too. They're in the rose family, by the way. So yeah, but I'd stick with those two. Yeah.
So
Another
referring
one.
to what you were talking about later, who is the elder herbalist in Marblehead?
Oh, Margie Flint. Yeah. Good herbalist. I'll be teaching there in May, late May, 20 something. I'll be out there. We're working on the William Lesaussier archive, trying to transcribe his work to publish it as a book eventually, and or books, because he was a genius. I mean, we just our minds are blown. Like you get to be a good herbalist, and there's not that many people who can teach you things, although every student, they're always coming up with new things, you know, but like you don't get like 3 mind blows a page like with William. And this was the stuff he generated when he was in his 20s. I mean, well, he was psychic and he could kind of read into the body a lot. It's just amazing. So look for that book in 2 or 3 years. Yeah. William Lesaussier. There may still be a William Lesaussier archive.com where you can get some tapes. Yeah.
We have
Thanks.
one more cinquefoil. Uh, Tara asks, could cinquefoil help with wrinkly scars on the top of the hand from a traumatic burn?
Oh, okay. So I would definitely make a salve. See, what would I do here? Okay, so my favorite scar remedy, okay, in general is teasel, which has the memory of what health was. One of the better burn remedies, I haven't used it for a long time for burns, but iris or blue flag rhizome. I'd put both those in there, and then I put cinquefoil in there. And if it's really hot, I would put this in rubbing alcohol because that cools. If it doesn't matter so much, I'd put it in a lotion or a salve and or a oil. But oils, coconut oil is cooling, but um, that's probably the only oil I would try to do it with. But I would try to, boy, borage popped into my mind there. Maybe I had it on my mind, but so those are the herbs I would try to get in there. Yeah, so and cinquefoil is preferable because it's on the hand. Yeah, and so he who must not be named said, yeah, we Indians, we didn't believe in putting cold on a burn. We put heat on to draw the heat out. Oh, he used, if you get this, Monarda fistulosa, wild bergamot, to draw the heat out. He said, I thought of keeping this to myself, but the number of scars you could prevent and improve. So that's another one, wild bergamot. That one, if it's not in commerce, you can probably get the oil, but it's bergamot oil, wild bergamot, not bergamot. And it's got to be that Monarda fistulosa. Yeah. Yeah.
How about, shall we move on to another
Yes.
herb? Solomon seal?
Yes, Solomon's Teal fits in here tremendously. Okay, so um down south, so in the Black Afro-American magical tradition, or just even this is even not just in Black. Oh, we're in the last day of Black History Month, so we're getting some Black history here. So the magic remedy to prevent a person from hitting you, to protect you against the blow, was High John the Conqueror. And that is different in different books and sources, but I believe the main herb there was Solomon seal, and I know that has been used for that. Okay, but Solomon seal, actually, the way that it acts more really is it puts you in the right place at the right time rather than in the wrong place. So you don't get blamed for someone else's thing, or you're just lucky. It helps. So it'd be worn in a mojo in particular. And um that uh and that would protect you against being hit. And there's an example of this in the autobiography of an American slave by Frederick Douglass. I think that's the name of the book, published about 18, only in the first edition, that because those New Englanders are too uptight about magic. They just wanted to emphasize what a great guy he was, and but he put the truth in the first edition. So about 1848 or so, something like that. So he says so the slave breaker, it wasn't just the slave master, like beat him up and he ran away. He ran into the woods or whipped him or something, and he was going around in the woods. And I mean, they had no idea where to go to get to freedom or anything like that. And he said he watched the ships come down Chesapeake Bay and realized that they were coming from a free state. He could tell. I mean, that's how they kept him in the dark. So he was out in the woods, and this old guy who was past being an active slave lived with a freed woman. And Sandy Jenkins, he said, he ran into him and Sandy said, well, you got to go back, but I'm going to give you an herb, a root that will that will make you never be hit again. Well, he went back. He did have to fight this guy for like an hour. They fought hand to hand, and the guy never bothered him again. And it didn't identify the herb, but that would have been High John the Conqueror. So, but it might have been a different herb. Could have been false Solomon seal, true Solomon seal. So Solomon seal, but it also it like it just helps you make connections. Like so, another case. So, woman in LA, I taught at her house, and she asked me, "Well, do you have a remedy for my nephew? He's a professional baseball player. He's like rookie of the year for this baseball club, Toronto. It happened, and years ago. And he had a great season. And then in the World Series, he ripped his uh, rotator cuff, and he had surgery, but it's not healing very well. And um, would there be something that could help him? Like, yeah. So I actually, when I got home, I sent her some salve of the Solomon seal, and she gave that to him, to his mother, and then to him. And and it helped a great deal. And so then all the rest of the season, she'd send me reports. Oh, Toronto just beat the Twins again. So So, yeah, so it's really good for things like baseball where you just want to be in the right place at the right time. Like that's a sport that's got more of that kind of magic to it, like being just hit the ball just right. You catch it, you're just and then you're off, you can't nothing connects. You can't, well, I'm in a slump, like that's what Solomon Seal is for too. And there's, each sport has its own kind of logic like that. Like football, it's more strategy. What are we going to do? Each play strategy. Hockey and basketball, it's think in the second, you know. Okay, so um yeah, all right, next question. Think magically, huh?
Indeed. One of the people were asking, what is your source for Solomon seal? I was going to put a link in for Cartesia. Is that what?
Yeah, okay, so Cortesia yeah, they were the first person who ever made it. I would have given Susan, but she died. My dear friend Susan that we did the program about that I was talking about earlier. Um, so um you can look it up online too. It's still kind of more of a folk remedy than it is accepted into the high upper echelons. But I mean, it was in the herb store when I started working there in 1982. It's always been, it just wasn't used a whole lot. It's in Chinese herbs. Chinese herbs, I don't trust them as much. They put lead in there. I mean, they need an FDA, and we got an FDA. So use it for external use only if you get the Chinese one. The Western one you can use internally or externally, European or American. If you're growing this for your own use, so if you're going to start using solvent seal a lot, which you will if you get to know it, it is so valuable. Um, grow it, plant it, grow it, or have a friend in a area that where on a farm or part of the country. It would need a certain amount of water. Um, and I recommend the Japanese just because it's really available. Variegated variety, it's called Polygonatum japonica variety variegatum, or else it's called Polygonatum variegatum. So it's got white on it. It grows really rapidly and competes very well. It's a little bit obnoxious compared to the other native Solomon seals. Solomon seal likes sunlight or um, the edge of the woods. It's native to the edge of the woods and it likes to be on a slant. It will not grow on flat ground, and you got to plant at least three of them. So Susan taught me this. So she got 100 seeds and she put them in some kind of little cookie sheet where there was a separate unit, each seed in a separate little thing, all 100 of them, and watered them and put dirt in there, and nothing ever grew. So she was like, what's going on? What's the problem?" And the plants talked to her and they said, "Well, look at us." "Oh, you guys like to grow in a group." "Oh, okay." So then she just took a cookie sheet with no boundaries and put all the seeds there with some soil and water, and they grew fine. So, yeah. Another question.
Deborah says, I used Solomon seal for a back injury that also injured my sciatic nerve. I used a salve for months and it helped with the healing, discomfort, and pain from the sciatic nerve. I am 95% healed now.
Ah, yeah. So, sciatic pain, St. John's wort, another magical remedy. Um, or rabbit tobacco or helichrysum, which is the European version of rabbit tobacco. All magical remedies. And those are for, I don't know why they're magical, except that's Sagittarius, the sciatic nerve. So Sagittarius is kind of go with the flow, lucky, be lucky. Luck is kind of ruled by Jupiter and Sagittarius. We Gemini steal it.
That's another great thing about it. We believe in you, Mercury.
Yeah. We found an envelope that was telling us secrets of magic.
Alicia says, I had hip pain for something like 15 years. I started using a Solomon seal balm and it relieved it.
Yeah, and it probably cured it too. Like she might want to comment. Yeah. Oh, Can't use cure. Well, in fact, it might be in remission, but like I was visiting my friend at Green Comfort in Virginia, Teresa Broadwine, great school there. And she had a student that was gonna go for the summer class, and she called up and said, "Oh, I won't be able to make it because I'm gonna have to have a hip replacement." And Teresa, we weren't very confident, but she wasn't very confident. It was late 90s. I was confident at least about Solomon seal, but well, maybe we could heal it. We'll try some Solomon seal. And they put it on, and the woman, 17 years later, Teresa told me the story, and the woman still had her hip, no replacement, which is mighty nice because doctors they only have like fentanyl and hip replacement.
I was listening to a talk the other day of someone who was formerly in the health insurance arena, and he said once they saw someone's case come across their desk, so they were doing estimates, right? They would do the statistics. He said once he saw a case come across his desk of someone being on, cortisone, prednisone, and so forth for joints, he said they would, in their charts, they would schedule the joint replacement like
Yeah,
3 months out. It was predictable.
yeah, yeah, very much so. Um, yeah, and another herb that actually is good for connective tissue that's good for hip joint pain and joint pain is yucca root, but that's not in commerce. You'd have to live in the Southwest. And that has actually herbal cortisol in it. But Solomon seal does so much and puts the hip in the right place is kind of part of it too. So that's kind of magical that way. Yeah.
Holly's
So,
wondering if dry salmon seal is just as effective as fresh for salve.
oh yeah, okay. Dry is very good. So I'm making a salve, you'd like put it in a crock pot on low overnight, or well, better to put it while you're walking around the house and keeping an eye on it. You don't want to caramelize it, get it too far, but so put it in an oil. I like a safflower oil. Um, but boy, if you got bear grease, that would be optimum. That's good for the joints too. But yeah, if I'm using the dried root, I sprinkle water and let it soak it up a little bit. I just like it to be a little moister for some reason. It just seems more harsh when it's totally dried out, that particular plant. Um, yeah, Solomon seal. Yeah, oh, okay.
Yep, Maggie is saying I can confirm a joint realignment using Solomon seal with an elbow displacement. It was a very quick recovery, a matter of days.
Ah, ah. Let's see. Okay, so Matthew Wood's magic potion.
Those of
Oh,
you who have stayed this long, now you get to the secrets.
yes, right. Okay, so I was teaching in upstate New York at um Kate Gilday's woodlandessence.com. They don't really teach anymore. They just do, they got such a big business that they just sell herbs. And so I was teaching and somebody had to leave for something. And I said, oh, you need a good luck potion. Like I was thinking Harry Potter, kind of like Felicitas, that good luck potion that Harry Potter had. Oh, you need a good luck potion. And then I just immediately like, and oh, here, let's see, one part, let's see, I hope I can remember it. One part Solomon seal, maybe it was Agrimony. Oh, one part rabbit tobacco, one part Solomon seal. Golly, uh, in trouble remembering. Darn, you'll have to ask Claudia Keel from Arbor Vitae School. Well, I think it would work with one part Solomon seal, one part Agrimony or Cinquefoil, and one part rabbit tobacco.
We have
I
some
re
people chiming in ghost pipe.
Yes, yeah, okay. That was the original, but I changed it because of the scarcity of ghost pipe and tobacco. Do they know do they have that formula what the three herbs are? The other two other than ghost pipe, maybe? If they can chime in.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's see.
It's like I care so little I've forgotten it, but 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 so I wrote it down here, and then Claudia Keel says, "Wait a second, I want to see that was lucky good luck potion. I want a copy of that." So she wrote it down because I was just like, it was the spur of the moment. So like 8 years later, I never even thought of it again. And she said, "Oh, and Matt taught me how to make this good luck potion." I'm like, "What? Oh, you did that?" And she said, "Yeah, well, it's not gonna change things like really significantly give you good luck, but it does small things." And the example she gave was like a big thing. Like, so she and her husband, who's also named Matt, they were just exhausted from the work they had to do. They were just in a period of life when they're just utterly exhausted. Tara and I have been in this, like even if we're in different parts of the country, we're still exhausted because of all the work for the institute. And we're usually both exhausted at the same time. Well, she and her husband were, and they needed a rest. And they were poor, and so there was a raffle to win a ticket to a cruise for two in the Alaska Panhandle, British Columbia, cruise ship for 2 weeks. And I don't know if she bought more than one ticket, but she put the magic good luck potion on the ticket, and they won. I thought, like, that's pretty big. But yeah, she was thinking in terms of, well, they just needed a rest. So it didn't seem so big, but yeah, okay. Does anybody have that formula? I mean, I would,
Yeah, we're getting quite a few variations. So we have
eh,
solid seal and Cinquefoil. Amanda says, I've used this version with Ghost Pipe flower essence. I've used Agrimony, Solomon Seal, and Ghost Pipe.
yeah, that was the original. Then I substituted um rabbit tobacco, I believe is what happened. Any other thoughts? Any other versions?
And I'm not seeing any other versions.
Okay, so um well, monotropa ghost pipe is magical and really, really important because it helps you see above the problem and get through trauma that's like too painful to face and to go through, and even physical pain like that. And that's really makes it really, really essential. But this rising above was what I used for the magical to help you go to another, sphere and come back again. But so this plant, we no longer pick the roots. Like it's a saprophytic. It's it doesn't have any of its own chlorophyll. Grows under pine trees in the Northeast and down into Minnesota and down Appalachia and stuff. And it's unreliable from year to year where it will grow. And it is a saprophytic parasite on those other plants. Not that they mind much, little teeny thing. So nowadays we cut off the flowers and use that, and you have to make that into a flower essence or save it. I mean, people don't make a tea. It's got to be tinctured because it dissolves, it breaks down, it becomes nothing. It disappears. Also kind of magical. It turns dark and black. It's clear, like full of water, almost looking clear and whitish, like a ghost pipe. And so I used that originally, and that is okay if you got a lot of that herb, or you're not taking a plantation, you're not using up the wild plants. But after a while, I thought, oh, rabbit tobacco, because rabbit tobacco, uh, another formula, if you want a magic peace pipe formula. So the fairies told me, I don't know, it was not like Native American elders, it was the fairies. I had a dream and they said, oh, we have a tobacco for you. 1 part tobacco, Nicotiana, 1 part red willow or red osier dogwood, kinnick, another tobacco bark, and then 1 part rabbit tobacco. And they said the tobacco gets you to another plane, like makes you abstracted. The rabbit tobacco helps you helps all the tumblers move to until you get to the right um
Combination.
yeah, yes, and then click, like it reveals the tumblers, opens them to you. And Susan used to call the fairies the tumblers because they were like that. They would manifest something. And then the red osier dogwood, the red willow, grabs it and helps bring it back to this world. So this was a method for a tobacco that would help you meditate and pray and have good success, I guess. Um, and and we used it for sure. Susan didn't like the rabbit tobacco as much because it's a trickster medicine. You could feel it because it's rabbit. Um, but I'm a Gemini, so I was like, yeah, that's my kind of stuff. And let's see. So then I realized it would work. It would help find the right tumbler in that magic formula. So you can kind of see you could do things a little differently too. Um, Solomon seal and agrimony or cinquefoil go together just tremendously. They work together. Also, to open the heart, like almost literally the chest, the rib cage, uh, 2 parts Solomon seal to 1 part hawthorn berry. Hawthorn berry is best. And that's like, wow, is that good? So it may release grief and stuff, but it's really mechanical almost. So yeah.
I did an experimented and I added agrimony to that mix one time, and because it was more like I was kind of in a cathartic like my heart was an opening, and so I kind of added that as like an extra oomph. Also
Yeah.
because agrimony is my first plant ally.
Yeah,
But I
good.
took it with my own warning. I was like, I'm going to be home today.
Yeah.
And be a little careful with this one.
And did it help?
Yeah, it did help. Yeah, I forgot what I called it. I gave it a little name also.
Yeah, good. Right.
Yeah.
Well,
Annette, you'll like
good
this one.
is
Was that
magic. Oh, feeling good in the heart. Okay, another question.
Annette, you'll like this. Annette says, "Thank you so much for the info. I took a picture of my backyard years ago and got a picture of a fairy."
Oh, fantastic. Wow. The tumblers clicked.
Yeah. A number of people wondering for these formulas, how are you using it? Are they taking them internally? Do you apply them to something? Do you spray them? How are you using these magical formulas?
Well, the good luck formula was external. Yeah, was to put on like the tickets.
Hector
Yeah.
says agave is my favorite heart opener. So does
Oh,
that mean tequila is really great for that?
I don't know, but agave could be added to that too. I like threes more than twos or fours.
Let's see. Well, do you want to cover any more herbs or do you want to do like a lightning round of remaining odds and ends questions? What would you like to do? We're already at
Yeah,
almost 9 local
we'll
time.
do questions and we'll have another magic program in 4 years. No, we'll do another magic formula for some time because I wanted to go over tulip poplar, which Amanda Nicole is real keen on, and she and I, and this class I mentioned, I would recommend when she and I did a class on holly and bat medicine. That's a magic plant. And California Bay Laurel I had wanted to get to. That's the top of the heap. That's really magical. That's smarter than humans. Like we asked them oh, could they, like, we had a class, plant attunement, and with Valley Oak, me and Jolie, who's deceased now, but she's on our institute. Valley Oak, Tan Oak, and California Bay Laurel. And the California Bay Laurel harbors a um, virus, I think it is, that kills the tan oak. It's actually oak wilt. And the Valley Oak is pretty immune to it. And the Valley Oak said, oh, yes, we saw this. We ran into this disease a long time ago. So, yeah, they have a pretty good immunity. If the grafts cross, they could spread from tree to tree. But, or if you took a saw and spread it that way. But tan oak is just devastated. And so we asked the California Bay Laurel, could they suggest anything that would help the tan oaks? Like, or could they lay off it and not be so hard on the tan oaks? And the tan oaks were like literally whining. Nobody likes us. We're gonna die. The Bay Laurel said, oh, in the great scheme of things, it doesn't really matter whether tan oak survives or not. And you humans had better watch out too. It's like, wow, are you guys ever cheeky? Uh, yeah, that'll be a great class sometime. We'll have to do the same thing, magic, a free magic class. And I would like, so you guys in California and Oregon, when fall comes, collect the bay laurel nut. It's really tasty when it's been roasted all the way to black, like a coffee bean, black roast. And when it's part way but not totally, try it and you'll see it's terribly bitter. When it's all the way roasted, it tastes better than chocolate and better than coffee. And a combination, a little bit of honey would be good in it. But so you want to learn how to use that as a food, and you want to and then you roast it part way, and you have a very famous Northern California Native American magic remedy, which really is magical. Like I say, these plants are more smart than us, and they will remove karma. Like, oh, okay, we'll get rid of that for you. But maybe you got to deal with it later on or something. Oh, and a final note. Well, I can answer some questions, but he must not be named would always say, yeah, if you use magic, you're gonna have to pay a debt sometimes. So like one of my friends was healed by him of red tide with Solomon's Hill. I have no idea why he used it for red tide. And he said, yeah, you're gonna make an offering and you're gonna have to change. Your life is gonna change. So she had to move to another city. So he was quite, so he'd say, so you take iris powder of the iris rhizome. He used orris root. It was commercially available. Put it on merchandise that you want to sell. So you're at the powwow and you have your table with the jewelry that you make, like he would do. And and then it's people are attracted. Oh wow, I want to look at that one. But then he said, but then there'll be some teenager that'll hang around for like half an hour, doesn't have any money. So you got to give them something, You got to pay for using the magic. So, okay. Few
Exchange
more
of
comments?
energy, isn't it?
Yep, exchange, yes, right.
Yeah. Just for a moment, I'll show people, there's all, we'll fire through some questions at the end. A lot of questions that are coming up. You can also go to all courses at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism and even just search the topic that you're looking for. So for example, we had questions about kidneys, and so you can type in kidney and the classes regarding kidneys will come up. Lymph was another one. Obviously, it's already up in my search, but I'm just trying to show you how simply you can look for classes that you're inquiring about. First aid covers a ton of questions about, the musculoskeletal system, injuries, and so forth. That's a terrific one. And then also herbs A to Z. If you want to go more in depth regarding these herbs that Matt's talking about, there are classes. This is chock full of classes about
Yeah,
even a whole hour on some herbs or more. And so herbs A to Z is absolutely fabulous for that, and it's still ongoing. So for example, in early March we'll be talking about rose family with Matt and Phyllis. And then absolutely still you can download these free materia flashcards. I've been sampling them and they're absolutely free. You can download 52 herbs, not just 52 cards, detailed like you saw with images, the energetics, parts of use, and so forth. Just wonderful, wonderful information there. So just wanted to let you know because there's a lot of questions coming up, and we do have amazing resources. Also, teachers are available on the site to answer questions. Okay, you ready? Fire
Yep.
through some questions. I'm just going to go in order.
All right.
Linda asked, how does Mullein affect the skin?
I'm not sure, but I'm sure it does. It connects connective tissue. Very good question, but I don't know.
It sure looks like the extracellular matrix when you look at the leaf and you see all the.
Yeah, or the underside and the outer side. Yeah. So Linda,
Yeah.
you made a very good connection there.
Mhm.
So,
Amanda says it can give dermatitis.
oh, yes, that's true. Yep.
Mhm.
Oh,
Great. We have here's an interesting one. Baron says, "Hi, 3 years ago my cat lost her best lifelong friend, my other cat, and suddenly went blind. It was sudden and out of the blue from sorrow and loss. I think, so I believe that it can magically come back and with the right remedy. What do you have experience with for the eyes? Thank you."
let's see. So hopefully after a couple years, uh, we don't want to spend too much time. Teasel remembers what health was like. Bilberry, of course, is the famous herb for the retina, so the retina has the highest metabolic rate or oxidation, hottest or little remedy, and it's constantly feeding on essential fatty acids. So you need things to support that would be my guess of what happened here. And this is a guess. I'd actually go to black currant berry and black currant seed oil or black currant berry and seed. You could do bilberry, the old eye remedy, and add black currant seed oil. That would be a good combo too. You'd want blueberry fruit, yeah. Well, or leaf, or bilberry, yeah. All right. Next question, because I don't want to spend too much time.
Just a side note, cats can be can react very differently to herbs. And I've used it with my cats, but I use extremely low dose. But that was very worth looking up because they react very differently from humans or even dogs.
Yeah,
Um,
and you can, if you have a tincture, you can rub it in their ear
mhm.
or on the
Can you
belly. Yeah, all right.
can you take calcium phosphate 6x preventatively?
Well, yeah, I mean, I would take it if you're nearing that age or, you know, um, and I had both those people, both my mom and the other woman, I had them do it 5 days on, one dose, 5 days a week, 2 days off. If you're doing preventatively, so if you're thin bone, tall, thin, or medium height, thin, bony, either the rabbit constitution, kind of extra bony, or the deer graceful type, they're more susceptible. Then I would use that as I'd be, but I would do it more like twice a week preventatively for a couple months, 3 months maybe, and then I would stop using it. Also, if you start getting cavities, start using it and use the calcium fluoride, cell salt 6x, because that's for the teeth. Because I have read that osteoporosis, one of the first symptoms sometimes in some people is is all of a sudden they start getting cavities. This happened to me. I had no cavities for 35 years, then I started getting one or two, and then a couple more, and then I lost a half-inch of height. So I'm doing those remedies right now.
Uh, Someone put a curse on my horse, wishing them all death. Horses. I am not strong enough to lift that curse, so they keep being sick with diverse ailments. Could you recommend me an herb ally to help lift that spell? Thanks so much.
Um, if you know who did it, well, if you don't know who did it, then you want something to clarify, like agrimony maybe. or why did they do it? Starts. Boy, this is like you might want a professional magician. I think Agrimony would definitely be worthwhile here. And you definitely put it in a stall. This is so old European folk medicine. There's got to be remedies that they used for this. Yeah. So, okay, next one. I just don't know for sure. Yeah.
Miriam says clay is also great to heal bones that can't be set. Book Healing Clay by Michael Abacera.
Oh, that's an old book. Great. That's like 70s. That was like, wow, when we were all getting our start, we didn't know anything. But he was one of the first authors that did. Thank you. Yeah.
And Ava says, is it as potent if you buy Cinquefoil leaf for these purposes?
You can get it. Well, you may have to. I definitely have used Agrimony Bach flower, but everything else, I've either made the tincture myself or given it to somebody or picked the leaf of the Cinquefoil. So I do have confidence in the Bach flower essence Agrimony, but otherwise it'd probably be better. And if so, even if you don't feel like you talk to the fairies or the spirits or anything or the plants, put out a little tobacco or something or a penny as an offering when you receive something in the mail or something or somebody else. So try to make that connection. Yeah, next one. Whoa, holy cow.
It's time for bed. Morgan says, how would you apply Cinquefoil in labor? I'm learning midwifery and would love to know how to apply this knowledge. Also, let's put a link for the female reproductive series because that class is coming up.
Yeah, well, if a woman is tense coming into the last month, I'd start using Agrimony. And it's not on a menagogue. I mean, it might be under some weird circumstance, but it's not generally on a menagogue. And I would use it. I would have them take it internally, although that you could also probably put it on the belly externally too. So
She doesn't
yeah.
want to say. I'm sorry.
Hi.
Okay, Connie says, I have a calcium buildup between my fibula, head, and tibia. I can't walk very well. It's the size of a rock
Oh, geez.
intertwined nerves. My fibula was a green break 40 years ago.
Man. Okay. Yeah, well, we shouldn't give advice, but we will. I don't mind giving advice for animals, but okay, so calcification to decalcify generally, gravel root to moisten and lubricate, and actually, even if it's irreparable, to get the tendons to fit nicely, and that would be Solomon seal. So gravel root and Solomon seal, and maybe mullein in a case like that. Yeah. So we don't know. It's possible that even just a little bit of work on it. Gravel root gets rid of gravel out of the kidney, that's for sure. Gravel root helps get calcium in the right place. So teasel might help too, but I like 3. So next one.
Alyssa says, is there a magical use for black walnut in relation to telling parents big life updates that typically would upset them? I am from an Asian family with strong hierarchical dynamics, and parents feel I am still a baby, although I'm in my mid-30s almost. I worry about deeply upsetting them or incurring their disapproval or their fear.
Well, that sounds a bit like agrimony and black walnut. Yeah. I mean, or walnut, and those two can be used as a flower essence. Yeah. Yeah, that's what I would try. Yeah, you can look through fluorescence literature, and if you see any other fluorescences that fit in there, you could add 3. Fluorescences are best 6 or less. 3 to 5 is best, or 1 to 5. Yeah, there's research on that. So
Okay. Dose for Solomon seal is 3 drops a day under the tongue.
yeah, 1 to 3 times a day. Yeah, good. Yeah, this is edible, so there's not a problem with taking too much. This is an old trail food. Yeah. So
Could Solomon seal help with an SI injury?
sacroiliac.
Someone had mentioned earlier in the comments that it did help her particularly, but particularly with the nerve pain. So more like sciatica, sound like.
Would any kind of injury at all, I'd try Solomon seal, but I might try to get something more exact as well. Yeah, so we have classes on musculoskeletal system. We've already done the first aid one. There's just tons of case histories from me and Phyllis on Solomon seal. Then we have, we'll be doing chronic, which this plant is good for chronic too. So, yeah. Next.
Do you prefer the Solomon variegatium species because it works better or because it grows easier?
Because it grows easier. I don't think it's better as a medicine. Yeah. I've never known a Solomon seal that didn't do its job. Yeah.
It says old mat formula, 2-part agrimony, 1-part Solomon seal to relax the muscles the way cannabis does.
Yes. Actually, even more precise, 7 parts agrimony, 4 parts Solomon seal. I don't know why it made be the magic number there, but otherwise it's 2 to 1 agrimony to Solomon seal. And that would, I mean, it just makes you feel like, oh, wow, well, I don't need to get high all the time. Not that I'm against cannabinoids, so, yeah.
For the California Bay roasting to black, are you supposed to make a tea of that tincture from that? Thanks.
Well, you can, and it tastes a lot like Kahlua, or you can just keep them. Yeah, I mean, for culinary use, you don't break it up like that. So you do have to take the shell off and put them on a cookie plate, I mean, a cookie sheet, and I would, or wide pan, and I'd probably put some kind of oil there, although they have their own oil. I don't know, they have to have that. And then roast it maybe, if I remember right, I haven't done it for a while. I got to experiment 350, 375 for 20, 30 minutes. Does that sound about right? Tara, how do you think?
Well, I haven't made anything from them before.
But roasting a nut, that would be a
Oh, it sounds about right to me, but Alberto would probably know even better.
okay.
I don't know that it really depends on the nut as well.
Yeah, it's a biggish nut. It's totally inedible until it's roasted.
Are you then are you eating them directly or making a tea or tincture from them?
Well, the bitterness is gone, once they're roasted black as a coffee bean, they taste good and they're no longer have that medicinal property. So you have to catch them when they're partly roasted, but you don't want them unroasted. They're truly terrible beyond description. The texture, I don't know who eats them. I can't imagine. Um,
Yeah, that sounds about right. And I would just say it depends on your oven and how hot it is. Some ovens are much hotter and
that makes sense.
yeah, like just keep an eye on them and maybe make sure you rotate them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Turn them over and things too. Yeah, good
But
point.
you've talked about it before. I think you said about 20 minutes.
Yeah, yeah. Keep your eye on it. If there's a few that, well, if you're trying to get it black, then you pick out the ones that didn't make it all the way. You can use those for medicine. If you roasted them for medicine and then a few are really black, man, take those and eat them. Another question.
Do you have three healers or magicians you would recommend to handle removing powerful curses?
Oh, geez, I don't actually, I'm not really in that world. Hmm, yeah,
I wouldn't rule out a good priest, in a pinch.
right, right. Okay, yeah. But I would start wearing maybe um agrimony, and even to find the right person, wear some Solomon seal because you make connections with that plant. So
Avril
good.
asked, Matthew mentioned a book about Irish magical herbs in another chat with Phyllis. Can he remember who wrote it or the name? I'm in Ireland.
Well, I know that here's two authors like Sean O'Donoghue in Maine. He's written a book. I'm not sure if it's in print, but I think it is. And then Rosarie Kingston in Cork, she wrote more on folklore. It's a little bit more like a scientific look, but it's not totally scientific either. She's a practicing herbalist. Um, but I do remember, yeah, there was some, there would it be a while ago, there was two books, like there was some really great books on Irish folk medicine, and I bought one in Ireland. Might have been two volume, might have been one volume, but it really had a lot of folklore. That was the one that it talked about the seven sacred herbs of Ireland, and like the Indians in America have seven sacred herbs. Different people have different ones. Like rabbit tobacco is one of them. St. John's wort's another. Oh, you can look those up. That is online. The seven sacred herbs of Ireland. You'd find that eventually, one way or another. I've seen it online.
Ariel saying Ellen Hopman books.
Oh, yeah, okay. Ellen Hopman, she's North American, but she's certainly writing about magical. Yeah, it might not be specific to Ireland, but wow, I mean, New England, England, Ireland, pretty much the same. Yeah.
Elena asks, would Solomon seal help with chronic boils and skin irritations?
Would which? What?
Solomon seal.
I think so. It's a soothing mucilage. Um, it probably would. It's an old poison ivy remedy. Yeah, it's not one I've used because there's other ones too. Yeah,
We might address the underlying issues. Also sounds like maybe, quote, bad blood
yeah, of some kind.
coming
Yeah,
up. That might help topically, but getting to the root of the issue
yeah.
is a good idea. Kim says, what topically to heal dogs' very red ulcerated vulva for many months? Have tried calendula, yarrow, gotu kola, chamomile. I considered Solomon seal. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, okay, those were good guesses. For humans, um, the there's one specific for vaginitis that's hibiscus flower and maybe with rosehip or rose petals. And that's worked several times when I've needed it to work for women. But I always prefer to have, 3 to 5 specifics, and I only know that one. So, yeah.
That's it.
It's cousin, because now they know that Tilia, linden flowers in that family. I would try that too. That's cooling mucilage. So, and they now know, unbelievable, linden is in the marshmallow family. No, linden, no, flower. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
That's it,
Okay.
Matt. You did it.
Yay, okay. The door's closed. Bing. All right. Well, this is such a fun class. I'd really love doing it again in the future. Yeah. Yeah, good.
So there's a lot to cover tonight. I'm just going to share with you the website. Yep, and she's ready for bed too.
Yep. See you guys. Bye.
Thanks, Matt. Bye-bye. Sorry if we missed some questions. There's just a lot of questions, especially if they got lost in the chat. That's really hard to keep track of. So it's definitely not intentional. I apologize if we missed any there. but you can always tune in. You can get the recording for this class simply by using the same link that you use to join. Oops, sorry, that's up here. Or just come back here and just type in your credentials again and you'll get access. This also will be available on YouTube. But of course, when you go back into the webinar, you'll have access to closed captions, the chat, and so forth. So even if you're seeing this on YouTube, this will be available for a week or so on the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism site. And so you could still register if you want to access. There's lots of very interesting commentary in the chat with people all over the world. It was really fun and fascinating. Again, there were so many questions that came up that really can be answered in many other classes as well. And classes at the Matthew Institute of Herbalism are not static. They are interactive. You can ask questions of teachers in the chat, in the discussion section. For example, there are a few questions on female reproductive system. This series is ongoing currently, and you can still join us. So we will be having a class here soon. Let's see, I'm going to go to the schedule down here. Our next class is on the female reproductive system, yeast infection, vaginitis, and HPV. The following class is pregnancy, delivery, postpartum, breast health, and lactation. And the following class is perimenopause, menopause, and aging. And so, for example, the question about using herbs in pregnancy, delivery, postpartum, breast health, and lactation would be perfect. One of those questions came up, for example. And also, there are quite a few questions about the kidneys. And we are completing a series on the kidneys. Actually, we've just added a bonus class. So anyone who's purchasing at this price, know that that was originally for 2 classes. Now it's going to be 3 classes, and the next class is this coming Monday. And these always are available later as a recording as well, and you can get these details at the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism. So the kidneys are very much actually connected to the female reproductive system, which is why we decided to do those classes very close to each other as well. And I'm going quickly here. Always feel free to reach out to us at hello@woodherbs.com, and we're very happy to help you out there and answer any questions. We have regular free classes, so check our join our newsletter, of course, and check our website for upcoming offerings. We had a wonderful class the other night with Carolyn Jones on the culinary remedies exploring health in African American kitchens, which was so vibrant and fun. And like Alberto said earlier, make sure you have something to eat before you attend this class, because you'll go away hungry. And it was just so fun and fascinating. And throughout the class, I was sampling here the Materia Medica cards, which are free. You can download these for free. And there are 52 herbs, and it is a really just detailed deck of cards. It's the most up-to-date information you'll find from Matthew Wood, so updated even from his books. You'll find the most comprehensive information. It's really a wonderful resource for anyone from a beginner herbalist to advanced. You'll find something for you there. And this will also put you on the waiting list. We'll let you know when those physical cards are available again. And we sold out a couple months ago, and just looking to get those on the market for you also to purchase in other countries. Previously, we only had them available for purchase in the US, so that work is in process. So you can also just sign up to be on the list here. We also have a fun deck of cards, Forage Fun cards, which similarly you can learn about the plants and their uses in a fun deck that you can play by yourself in like a memory game, for example, or with your kids or grandkids, or whoever's next to you. There's all sorts of options and lots of game ideas as well, and we're working on getting those worldwide availability as well. And you can always go to all courses. For example, like I demoed earlier, but it's worth repeating, just a single word in the search here can help you to find classes. If you're looking for an herb or a specific topic, it will help narrow it down. It's certainly not exhaustive. A lot of classes involve a lot of herbs and topics, but it'll definitely help narrow down where to find these topics. We are actually working on a brand new site, and just a fun heads up, we are working on a very extensive index as well that will really, really help you do research and find such terms throughout videos and content on the site. Currently, we have well over 100 terms, so lots of fun stuff to come. I'm going to check the chat to see if there's any remaining questions. Let's see. Yes, and the recording will be available. Thank you so much, beautiful one. Good to see you. Your chat participation was really appreciated as well. We love hearing from you all. Thank you so much, Pierce. Yes, absolutely, Hector. The legacy, anytime you're legacied in, you will be legacied in at when we transfer. So we will have actually quite an amazing offer for you all. And it won't be just available to the legacy members, it'll be available to all of you. So stay tuned. Lots of amazing stuff coming on behind the scenes. Thank you. Yes, she's waiting at the door to go out. She's doing pretty good. Behaving pretty well. Let's see. Recommended class for herniated disc. Contact us. Let's look into that a little bit more. That's pretty specific. You know, we need, let me think about that more, because that's pretty specific, and I think it comes up in multiple classes. Email us at hello@woodherbs.com and we'll narrow that down for you. I actually think it's mentioned in a number of classes. That's part of why I'm having a hard time thinking of one in particular. Okay. Thank you all. So many kind words. Thank you. And we have lots of amazing stuff coming up. So stay tuned. Always looking to get you the most. Yep, you can always email us and we'll do our best to help you out for sure. Okay, well, any other questions? Of course, I skipped over, that I shouldn't have skipped over, but I wanted to give you bite-sized pieces before showing you the whole buffet here. We do have enrollment open for the year one program. And if you want to take a deep dive into herbalism, and whether it's for yourself and you're on your own personal health and wellness journey, you just want to learn more in depth, or you want to start your journey in becoming a practicing herbalist, or maybe you're somewhere in between, you're not sure yet, that's totally okay. We have opened up enrollment for the year one program. The first ones, we have a limited availability, but it's still available. If you pay in full, you'll be one of the bonus winners to get this amazing set of gifts. It would be the physical year one Materia Medica cards, the Forage Fun cards, and a signed copy of Matt's latest book, The 7 Guideposts on the Spiritual Path, which is very hard to get right now. So all of these actually are basically unavailable except for here right now. So just a really nice bonus. I'm not going to go through all this. It's really extensive, lists all of what you will learn in the first year program, what's included. It's chock full of amazing content, and you will receive emails every other week to help guide you along the way. But there's a community, a very active community, and Q&A sessions, study groups, a lot to accompany you and keep you on the path, and not just keep you on the path, but people to be with you on the path, which is much more fun. And we have amazing contributors to the content, to the site, as you'll see here. And it's so full of amazing content. It's just, it's all laid out here, but it's almost indescribable. There's also absolutely amazing tools. This is actually on our new website. So we have wonderful tools like closed captions on each video, transcripts with each video, and you can search the transcripts for terms. So, if you're doing research or you want to review a video and you're like, oh, there's something Matt said about Yarrow, where is that? You can actually do a search in the transcript, and then it'll highlight it in yellow, the word, and then when you click on that, it will jump you to that point in the video where that term is mentioned. It's absolutely amazing. We have an index, actually we'll be releasing very, very soon, an index, again, over 100 terms. So again, it helps you to find content or do research, or maybe again, you're wondering, oh, where was that video? When was that video that Matt talked about this? It can help you to find research topics like that. Really wonderful, very interactive site that's more social media like, and just makes it very easy to interact with teachers and with one another. And teachers are available online to answer questions. Let's see, there's tons of, this is all what's included about this program. Too much to mention. Just know it's just full of about everything that you could wish for. Along with the certificate, especially if you're looking for accreditation or accumulating hours, we've laid this out here. You'll get between 89 and 140 hours of Materia Medica. Of course, this is going to depend. Actually, this is worth pointing out that the Matthew Wood Institute of Herbalism Year 1 program, and year 2 is right on the heels of this. So this launch, this enrollment period, there'll actually be a fast track option where you can complete the program within 6 months. It's an aggressive pace, I have to say, but it is doable. And you would still have a few months to spare in order to join us for the second year program, which is right on the heels. And both programs are meant to, yes, guide you, but also give you some options so that you can direct and choose a bit of your herbal studies as well. So for example, you can choose electives that are based in astrology, for example, or animal medicines. And there's more to come as far as the electives and how you might want to tweak your own herbal education. And so similarly here, as far as, Materia Medica hours, if you're accumulating hours for accreditation, you can accumulate up to 140 hours in this first year, or up to 47 hours in basic human sciences. And you'll see that if you're looking for accreditation by a certain agency, you're well on your way to accomplishing that with this program. It's very, very, very comprehensive. It's an absolutely amazing value. It's actually more than $8,000. We've actually added some content, but I mean, heck, that's an amazing deal as it is. So I encourage you just to go to the page, read all about it. Always feel free to contact us with questions. There are recent additions as well. We're adding a nutrition course, and so that will help you be a very well-rounded practitioner. And we still do have an early bird special going on. You can save up to $400 by enrolling by March 11th, or March 12th, sorry. Yep. So there you go. I'm going to check the chat again to see if there are more questions. Yeah. Yes, lots of great things on the docket. I see requests for flower essence training. That is certainly on the list for sure. Let's see. Great. Looking for any other questions? Okay. Oh, there's one in the Q&A. Hector says Lisa Schneidow wrote the book on Irish herbs. I'll put that in the chat here. Thank you very much for that. And absolutely stay tuned. We have, along with our new site launch, there is going to be some really great stuff we have in store for you. And good, I'm glad you enjoyed. Yeah, it was a fun way to spend leap year. Matt loves doing stuff like this. So, and we're grateful because we have fun, right? Wonderful. I'll hang around for a few minutes here or a moment here if you have any questions. But again, you can always reach us at hello@woodherbs.com. And I think I covered everything. Alberto, is there anything that I'm missing? But I think we got it.
I don't believe so.
Okay, great. She's now pawing at me. I think it was really time. Thanks
Yeah,
for the
fair enough.
backup, Alberto. This was a full class.
Yeah, it
Well,
was. It was fantastic, and it was just so wonderful to Matt has so much experience and so much so many cases. Like even um, with everything he was talking about, he was like, "Oh yeah, I thought of another one. I thought of another one." And so it's nice to kind of let him loose and not have like a curriculum based
yeah.
class and just let him go with the flow. Yeah, it's neat to see what he comes up with.
I'm amazed that even after several years, I'm still hearing new stories. So we'll have to do more of these so they keep coming out. All
Yeah,
right.
incredible.
Well, thanks everybody. Have a great night. And please like, share, subscribe if you're watching this on YouTube, especially, and share with your friends. I mean, this is great, helpful knowledge. And that's what we're aiming to do, is to preserve this knowledge and make it very easily and accessible to all of you. And always feel free to reach out. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.
Bye, everyone.